This is Lit Clips, and today we're going to be discussing The Story of an Hour, written by Kate Chopin and published in 1894. If you've not had a chance to read the story yet, in the description below there is a link to the text. Go ahead and read it. Don't worry, I'll wait. Got it? Let's do it. Alright, as our story opens up, we're introduced to our main character, Louise Mallard, and the first thing we find out about her is that she has heart trouble. Now, it's because of this, her sister Josephine and her husband's friend Richards break to her as gently as possible the news of her husband's death. Richards had been at the office when he received a telegram stating that there had been a train accident and Brittany Mallard's name had been on the list of those who were killed. Well, when Louise hears this, she does what we would expect any woman to do in this situation. She breaks down with sudden, wild abandonment into her sister's arms and begins crying. After this, she goes upstairs to be by herself. She closes the door to her room, and she sinks down into a comfortable, roomy armchair that is facing the open window. Through this open window, we can hear the sounds of a peddler in the streets crying his wares, and the sounds of the new spring life twittering in the eaves, the sparrows and the birds and whatnot. So she sinks into the chair, and as she's staring out the window, this feeling begins to come to her. She doesn't know what it is at first, but she tries to beat it back. But it continues to grow and swell, and as it does, it eventually manifests, and she says the words, "Free, free, free." She realizes something. She realizes that she is free to live her own life for herself, unconditionally. As a 19th century woman, she no longer has to be told what to do by the man in her life, which is usually either the father or the husband. In this case, it's the husband. And she looks forward to all the spring days and summer days and happy days ahead of her that she could live for herself, that there will be no will bending hers. And she continues to say this over and over again, free, 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 body and soul, free. Now, as she's doing this, her sister Josephine is on the other side of the door, and she hears something coming through the door, and she tells Louise, "Stop, Louise, you're going to make yourself ill." And Louise says, "No, I'm not making myself ill." Really what she was doing was she was celebrating. And eventually she opens the door and she descends the stairs like a goddess of victory. As she reaches the bottom of the steps, the front door begins to open, and Richard sees who it is coming through, and he tries to block the view to Louise, but it's too late. In walks Brittany Mallard, alive and well. As soon as Louise sees this, she immediately drops dead of a heart attack. When the doctors show up, they say that she had died of the joy that kills. Tough break, huh? All right, let's break this thing down. All right, what we're going to be looking at in this story are possible themes and the literary devices used by the author in order to convey these themes. All right, first of all, possible themes. The most obvious one is that of freedom. It's a story about a woman struggling for independence and freedom. A more cynical theme you could use would be that of karma. Here we have a story about a woman who is happy about this tragic news, and it turns out that something tragic happens to her in the end. The next thing we're going to be looking at are the literary devices. And the first one we're going to be looking at is irony, which is one of the more obvious ones in the story. Kate Chopin is known for using irony in her stories. Now, there's three different types of irony that we're going to be looking at. Dramatic irony, which is where the irony exists between the readers and the characters. Situational irony, which is where the irony exists within the story itself, between the characters or within a situation in the story. And verbal irony, where words expressed have a different meaning than those expected. The first type of irony we're going to be looking at is dramatic irony, where we, as a reader, as an audience, expect one thing to happen and something else does. The first one we're going to be looking at is when Louise says the words, "free, free, free." We as an audience, we as a reader, we expect Louise to be upset, depressed, distraught at the news of her husband's death. She is not. She's happy about it. She celebrates the fact. So, dramatic irony. Another example would be at the end of the story when Brentley walks through the door alive. We as a reader expected him to be dead this whole time, and he shows up alive. The next type of irony we're going to be looking at is a situational irony. One of the more obvious examples of this in the story is when Louise is in her room saying free, 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 free body and soul free, and Josephine is on the other side of the door. And she hears something coming through the door. She thinks that Louise is in there making herself sick with grief. In fact, she says, "Louise, open the door, I beg, open the door. You'll make yourself ill. What are you doing, Louise? For heaven's sake, open the door." Louise is not in there making herself sick. She is in there celebrating. So we have a discrepancy between what one character thinks and what the other character is actually doing. The other example would be, again, at the end of the story when Brentley walks in the door alive. The other characters in the story expected him to be dead, and here he is alive. The final type of irony we're going to be looking at is verbal irony. And there's really only one good example of that in the story, and that's right at the end when the doctors come in and they say that she had died of a heart disease, of the joy that kills. Now, the words expressed joy. It says that she had died of happiness. That's what the characters thought. They thought that she was so happy at seeing her husband alive that she immediately had a heart attack and dropped dead. The reality of the situation, more likely she died of disappointment. Kind of like thinking you got a winning lottery ticket and you're starting to celebrate just to find out that it was a joke ticket the whole time. Now, the other thing that we're going to be looking at in the story is symbolism, where objects or colors are used to express a more abstract or broad idea. The first symbols that we see in the story are when she goes up to her room and she sinks down into this comfortable, roomy armchair. Now, this chair is described specifically as being comfortable. You sit down in it. The cushions mold around you. It is embracing her in the same way that she is about to embrace her new life. Now, she is also looking out this open window, and we could say that the open window is also a symbol. It is a symbol of escape, of new opportunities, a way out of her current situation. Now, also, as she is looking through this open window, she sees the new spring life twittering in the eaves. Spring generally used as a symbol of rebirth and new life. Think Easter, resurrection, rebirth. Also, in the trees outside the window are sparrows, and birds are typically used as a symbol of freedom. Other symbols in the story, as she is thinking about the days ahead of her, she thinks about the spring days and summer days ahead of her. Now, generally, when the seasons are used symbolically, they are used to express the stages of life. So, in the spring we are born. In the summer is the fiery passion of our youth. In the autumn we fall and begin to die. And in the winter everything grows slow, grows cold, and dies. Well, is she looking forward to autumn days and winter days? No, she's looking forward to spring days and summer days, the happy days of our lives. One final symbol used in this story would be the color white. Louise's hands are described as being white, and typically white is used as a symbol of purity, so that we could say Louise's thoughts were pure of mind. All right, and that about wraps it up. That was the story of an hour, and this has been Lit Clips.